Dev Bori Sans Tumka in our Konkani of the language of Goa. And welcome to Goa and the 5th edition of the Goa Arts and Literary Festival. I request the President of International Center Goa, Sri Atin Kapurkar, and the co-curator of Goa Arts and Literary Festival, Damodar Mauser, to escort our guest, our chief guest, Dr. Edwin Tambu, and our keynote speaker, Wendell Rodriguez, to the dais. Very glad to inform you that architect Charles Correa is not keeping too well, is indisposed, and could not make it for today's inaugural. But he does send his fond wishes to all of us, and the Honorable Union Minister of State, Sripad Naik, also could not make it to this inaugural. The Goa Arts and Literary Festival. The Goa Lit Fest, GALF, started as a tiny little festival in 2010. A small little festival with around 37 delegates or so. And right off from there, it established a reputation for a very intimate and personal experience. After all, the connection between writer and reader should be as simple as it is to the pages of a book. Direct, personal, and intimate. Over the years, we have covered a focus on the northeast of India, Pakistan, Singapore, and so the nations grow. There are going to be book launches, book readings, discussions, debates, workshops, performances by artists. After all, it's an arts and literary festival. And a lot more. From, as I said, around the number of delegates were in 30s, around 30 odd in 2010. And in 2014, we have over 180 delegates. And besides that, we're going to have a lot of other guests coming in. So it's going to be a great 4 days of literature and arts. I recently attended a book launch, which was and there present was the Governor of Goa, Her Excellency Mridula Sinha. And she said something which stuck in my mind. She said, writers are the unelected leaders of a society. If you look at it in that sense, here we have a wonderful consortium of leaders. And as we deliberate over the next 4 days, we have the sense of responsibility and also a sense of celebration. Let me start off with a small verse of invocation from a poem by Manohar Desai, one of Goa's greatest poets. Zayat Zage in Konkani. In English it means rise, awake. This was when he was talking about rising and breaking from the bonds of colonial bondage. Wake up, your hands free today to shape the beams, blocks, to build a new temple on young but bare shoulders that must carry even the universe. Live together, walk together, sing together, work together. As light as cotton shall the painful burden of life be. Arise, awake. Zayat Zage. I now request the President of the International Center Goa, Mr. Yasin Kapurkar, to formally welcome the audience.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. as the president of the International Center Goa, the organizer of Goa Art and Literary Festival, it is my pleasant duty to extend a warm welcome to all of you, speakers, authors, writers, delegates, who have so keenly participated in this edition of our festival. A warm welcome to Professor Edwin Tambu, to Mr. Wendell Rodrigues, our keynote speaker, Mr. Professor Edwin Tambu, our chief guest. Also to our speakers later in the evening, Mr. Rajmohan Gandhi, Ms. Sagarika Ghosh, who will be joining us shortly. A warm welcome to our trustees of International Center, Srinivas Dempo and Mr. Mangarish Raikas. From a small beginning in 2010, Goa Art and Literary Festival has grown slowly but surely, gaining in strength with every edition and overcoming several challenges on the way. When first launched, people wondered how many years would this festival last? How will Goa, more at ease with the noise of an EDM, electronic dance music festival, take to the calm of a literature festival? This was the first challenge, proving Goa is a good venue for a literature festival. We have survived the first challenge. As our festival grew, literature festivals proliferated in various parts of India at a rate faster than cafe, coffee day outlets have opened. And throwing at us a second challenge. How do we make our festival different from the rest? How can we be unique? Over 4 editions, we have focused on high quality discussions and close interaction that smaller groups make possible. A serious and a keen participant at our festival who has made the journey from a faraway place, or a Goa-based literature lover who has taken a time from his schedule, need not fear being swept away by 18,000 visitors a day. Money matters, and this is the third and a perennial challenge. In the matter of raising finances, our festival may be called an amateur and not a professional, relying on the zeal of the ICG family to canvass for sponsorships and donations and to contribute to the festival budget. Our festival has come to stay, but many issues abound. How do we ensure Indian languages are assimilated into the festival, in which English is the lingua franca? How do we make this festival one of Goa, for Goa, and yet retain its national and international outlook? How do we make this festival bigger and better without losing the intense and intimate discussions that have taken place previously in every festival? These are omnipresent issues which we shall address in the present edition and future editions of our festival. We are very grateful to Her Excellency, the Governor of Goa, Srimati Mridula Sinha, herself a renowned writer, for extending support to our festival. She is also going to participate in one of the sessions tomorrow as a speaker. Probably the first time a governor has taken part as a speaker in a literature festival. We say a big thank you to our festival partners, Directorate of Art and Culture, Government of Goa, National Book Trust, Goa Writers, the pillars of this event. We are thankful to our sponsors, donors, hospitality partners, media partners, and volunteers without whom this festival would not be a success. Those who have made significant contributions include Goa Tourism Development Corporation, Mr. Narayan and Mr. Manda Vandekar, Indian Council for Cultural Relations, Dempo Group, Siddhartha Goa, and Axis Bank. Amongst the volunteers, Sri Damodar Mauzo and Sri Vivek Menezes from the Goa Writers have led the way, working tirelessly, and to them we say a thank you. A special thank you to the media for their coverage. They have kept us on our toes and for taking the festival to an audience outside the precincts of ICG. Thank you very much. Welcome to GALF 2014.
Thank you, Mr. Kapurkar. With the impact of having so many leaders in front of me, I quite forgot to introduce myself. My name is Jose, and I'm a member of Goa Writers. I do a little bit of writing myself in Konkani and English. What is Goa Writers? Who is Goa Writers? It's a little group of writers based in Goa. This group started somewhere in 2006, and we meet to discuss and improve our writing. We meet once a month at various places around Goa. And the spirit is of camaraderie, of sharing, of positive and appreciative, critical appreciation, you could say. And one of the leading lights of this group is Damodar Mauzo, a very important and established Konkani writer in his own right. He has several collections of short stories to his credit. His novel Carmeline won the Sahitya Akademi Award. He was president of Konkani Bhasha Mandal, one of the leading Konkani institutions in Goa. And in that tenure, he organized the first all-work Konkani music festival. As co-curator of the festival and as member of Goa Writers Group, I request him to say a few words.
Thank you, Judge. The chief guest of this evening, Professor Arvind Thambu, is a great poet in his own right. The president of International Center Goa, the Yatin Kapurkar. The personality who is going to give the keynote address today, this evening, Randall Rodriguez, an artist and a friend of mine. Dimitri is sitting in the audience, and friends. On behalf of GALF, and in particular Goa Writers Group, along with my colleague Vivek Menezes, I extend a very warm welcome, very warm greetings to one and all. 5 years back, when we started the Goa Art and Literary Festival, we weren't confident how GALF would be received. But we were determined to reach out to the outer world, to embrace the artists and writers fraternity beyond the linguistic boundaries, to explore the different ways of belonging, and thus to create a bond that would strengthen our ties with the rest of the world. Friends, as I speak to you, standing on the soil of Goa, I would like to express myself in the language of the soil for a few seconds. ज्येष्ठांनो, गोंयच्या ह्या कला आणि साहित्य महोत्सवात तुम्ही व्हडा प्रमाणात हांगा हाजीर जाल्यात हें पळोवन म्हाका खरेंच खोशी भोगता. ह्या महोत्सवाचो रूपकार जरी राष्ट्रीय आनी आंतरराष्ट्रीय स्वरुपाचो आसलो तरी हो गोंयचो महोत्सव. गोंयच्या साहित्याचेरय हांगा भासाभास जातली. राष्ट्रीय आनी आंतरराष्ट्रीय साहित्या वयले भाशा भाशेचो दर्जो आपणावप आनी तो वाडोवप ही मोख हो हावेस आमी दोन बाळगून ह्या महोत्सवात आमी सगळे वांटेकार जावया. हो 5वो महोत्सव. फाटले 4 महोत्सवात आमी आमचो दर्जो दाखयला. ह्या खेपेक आमी आमचे भासा भाशेचो दर्जो दाखोवया आनी वाडोवया. गोंयचो आमकां अभिमान आसा आनी हो अभिमान गरजे भायलो न्ही. हो अभिमान उक्तायतना म्हाका शणै गोंयबाबाचो उगडास काडून दिसता आनी तांचीच कांय उतरां तुमचे मुखार हांव दवरूंक सोदतां. पुण्यवंत, कुळवंत आणि भाग्यवंत हे आमचें गोंय. ताका पुर्विल्ल्या व्हडविकेचो अभिमान जायतो. आपूण उपाट सुखी जावन सगळो संवसार उपाट सुखी करचो ही ताची मानसा. त्या खातीर ते 7 समुद्राचे खरीक लेगीत हात घालीत. ताका मोठी ओड तरण्या धाकट्या उमेदीच्या गड्यांची, जे राना रायांनी भोग काजवेनात, वाघार वासवेलाच्या दाळेंत हात घालूंक गणमणनात, जे सह्य पर्वता भशेन थीर आणि गोमंत समुद्राविषयी बुद्धीचे खोल असल्या जुवान गड्यांची ताका तोखणाय दिसता. या तरणाट्यांक हाताक धरून संवसाराच्या बऱ्याच वावुरपाची ताची उमेद तडीक वचूं आनी सगळो संवसार सुखान नंदूं हें मागणें. ही उतरां आशिल्लीं शणै गोंयबाब हांची. With these few words in my own tongue, now I switch over to English. Today we are proud of our achievements over the last 5 years. Goa has become a hub of art and literary activities. In the process, we have also showcased our own literature of Goa for the wider world. At this juncture, we fondly remember and pay our respects to Professor U.R. Anantamurthy, who inaugurated the first edition of our festival. The passing away of this great literary personality is a great loss, not only to us, but to the entire literary world of India and abroad. This year we will observe Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Punyatithi by having 2 memorial lectures delivered by 2 eminent speakers, and also will screen a film on an eminent poet Narayan Surve, directed by Arun Kopkar, who also attends this festival. Our theme is different ways of belonging. That precisely sums up our line of thinking. Our emphasis is on building kinship through compassion and inclusiveness. We are keen on blurring the discriminating lines, the divisive notions, and the ill-meaning communalization and politicization of art, culture, and literature. We intend to achieve this through a meaningful literary dialogue. I am sure with the active support of the creative minds in this august audience, majority of whom are noble professionals, we shall be able to foster this noble cause. In the past, we brought in the best of the creative minds from the northeast, from the margins. We succeeded in bringing together the writers of Kashmir of different ideologies, who not only shared the panels, but also the dining table. This year, we are focusing on children's literature, and that will be celebrated in the presence of sizable number of children. This is probably the only literary festival wherein you will see the presence of such young literary enthusiasts. I'm talking about tomorrow and day after. We will also hear the voice of the Goans in diaspora. Again, for the first time, we have contingents from the neighboring countries of Nepal and Singapore. We also have writers from Pakistan this year. And a very warm welcome to you, my friends. Our special greetings to the Aboriginal Australians who are staging their debut in Goa. And I'm told that not only in Goa, particularly the present contingent is coming to India for the first time and to share their literary experiences with us. With the presence of writers from these focus countries, besides delegates from other countries, we can easily term these as global local festival, and I repeat, global local festival. Working with Vivek Menezes is a wonderful experience as he lifts most of the load and says we did it together. We miss our former director Nandini Sahai, and we don't want Arjun's hard work to go unnoticed. He is not only the face of the festival, but he is the one who has made things easier for us, and of course with the help of the entire team at ICG. Ever since Sri Yatin Kakurkar has taken over the presidentship of the ICG, he has been very supportive to the GALF. His insightful suggestions have helped us to overcome many of our anxieties. And before I conclude, I would like to refer to the father of modern Konkani literary movement, a scholar, a literator, Shoneng Wanbab, whose pride for Goa and Goans is evident in his works. He speaks of Goa's lofty desire to spread to the whole world the cheerfulness that Goa treasures. We at the GALF are keen on carrying on his aspirations. Let me quote him, of course, in translation. Goans are driven by the passion for attaining magnitude. It is they who wish to come up by their own competence. We are as firm in their resolve, who are as firm in their resolve as the Sahyadris, and who have an intellect as deep as Goman's sea. Goa is eager to toil for her own welfare as well as that of the world with the help of her children. I pray that this great ambition of hers will be fulfilled and that thereby peace will prevail in the world. I unquote. We at the GALF too are driven with passion for excellence and passion for inclusiveness. The Goan people love their land, their language, their culture, but with no prejudice towards others. I am sure the give and take during the festival will benefit all of us. We wish you a happy festival and we hope that you will return home with fond memories of the festival. Thank you, my friends.
Thank you, Bhai. Mr. Damodar Mauzo is known as Bhai in the Goa Writers Group and among the Konkani literary fraternity. I like the word global local. It's got the makings of a kind of a rap song or something. Global local lok, like it's something which Shaggy Bombastic would compose. He's a rap singer. When Bhai mentioned you are Anant Murthy, the great Anant Murthy, I was reminded of a session that we had at the first Lit Fest in 2010. Mr. U.R. Anant Murthy was there and Mridula Garg, she is a Hindi writer, and I was sort of hosting that session. And Anant Murthy said, you know, in our childhood, we had this, the men would sit out in the veranda, and that was the veranda talk. And the women would all gather around the well in the backyard, yeah. Bhai Chikode Bostani Sugni, of course, he said in Hindi. And that was the well talk, you know. And he was talking about his childhood. There was this balcony talk, veranda talk, and the well talk. In other words, men at the balcony and women at the well. And Ridula Garg from behind, she's frowning and, you know, almost expressing a disapproval. What is this nonsense about well talk, women there and men here? It was wonderful how one writer could talk about what is, and another writer could express about what shouldn't be, or you know, wanting equality or kind of gender equality in society. What is and what could be, what should be. All these things come out very beautifully in a literary festival, in the conversations that take place. Our chief guest for today's event, Dr. Edwin Thambu. When I read about him, I couldn't help falling in love with him. He's such a wonderful man and such a wonderful poet. He was born in Singapore and having graduated in English from the University of Malaya, as it was then known, after Singapore got its independence, it became University of Singapore. And he was the Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences from 1980 to 1991, the longest serving Dean of the National University of Singapore. And he continues to be associated with that university as Professor Emeritus. His poetry is inspired by myth and history, and he has often been unofficially considered as the poet laureate of that country because of the nationalistic themes expressed in his poems. His collections of poetry include Rib of Earth, Gods Can Die, Ulysses by the Merlion, and a third map. His latest anthology, Still Traveling, contains about over 50 poems. It was published in 2008. Dr. Thambu has won the National Book Development Council of Singapore Book Award for Poetry 3 times, awarded the first Cultural Medallion for Literature in 1979, and Bintang Bhakti Maya Rakat, that is a Public Service Star, in 1981 and in 1991. About his poetry, in the early years, it was lyrical poetry based on personal experiences, influenced by the Romantic poets and the English literary tradition. But by the mid-1970s, he was focusing more on nationalistic themes, how Singapore must produce its own literature, how we must talk about a contemporary Singapore. And it is said that these three poetry collections established his reputation as a national poet committed to articulating a cultural vision for a multicultural Singapore. Another thing that caught my attention was that he describes himself as a myth-inspired poet and sees myths as ancient narratives and structures which provide a stable point of reference for a multicultural society. I would just like to read only one small verse of what really struck me. This is from the poem Ulysses by the Merlion, with Dr. Mbu's permission. He talks about having sailed many waters, skirted many islands of fire, and eventually, I just want to read the last two verses, because I think it's very important for us in this multicultural festival and society. Despite unequal ways, together they mutate, explore the ages of harmony, search for a center, have changed their gods, kept some memory of their race in prayer, laughter, the way their women dress and greet. They hold the bright, the beautiful, good ancestral dreams within new visions, so shining and urgent, full of what is now. Perhaps, having dealt in things, surfeited on them, their spirits yearn again for images, adding to the dragon, phoenix, Garuda, Naga, those horses of the sun, this lion of the sea, this image of themselves. I will we will also declare the festival open.
Thank you very much. For a moment, I thought you were talking about somebody else. President Takotka, trustees of the center, Damuda Mauzo, friend now, Mr. Wendell Rodriguez, one elegant person on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, I am humble really standing before you and see it as a privilege and as an opportunity to say a few things. And there are of course the people I need to thank, and I mean thank. Firstly, the center itself for hospitality and Mr. Arjun for making all the arrangements that made life easy. I think the writers have made life a bit hard for him, changing minds and schedules and so on. And Mr. Vivek Menezes. And to that name I should add Professor Nina Kalgira. I knew of Goa when I was 15 years old. No, correction. When I was 11 years old, during the Japanese occupation. My father had very dear Goan friends. Two families, Nazareth and Bisa. And these Goans, I used to call them uncle, ended up as my teachers in Victoria School. Philip Nazar taught us history. Sebastian Bisa taught us English. And not only were they good teachers, but more important, they were good examples for what a person should be. And Mr. Bisa especially had this humility, this caringness for his students. Can you imagine a teacher marking essays where they used to use red ink in those days, where there was more red ink than the blue ink in which you wrote your essay? He was meticulous. And he never scolded us, he was never impatient. I learned the first from him, but I didn't learn the patience from him, unfortunately. So, during the Japanese occupation, we used to visit Nazo's family along Strangon Road, very close to Little India. And of course, when I went to university, we studied colonial history. And that meant European expansion overseas, starting with the Spanish and the Portuguese, and the division of the world between Spain and Portugal. This is why Brazil speaks Portuguese, and so on. And the colonial history was being taught by scholars from Britain. So it was a straight historical narrative between the colonizers and the colonized. And it was more about them than us. This is why when we use the word local, I'm a bit hesitant. I think we should not use the word local unless the context is very specific. We should say Goan. Not say Goan, all the time. You use local only when it makes sense to say local. Otherwise you're Goan all the time, first and last. You must. You see, this is part of the colonial hangover. Foreign good, local no good. So please, I'm trying to do that in Singapore. My last opportunity is to write to the minister because we're going to be 50 years old very soon. I think it's 50. Yes. You know, it's marvelous to be older than your country. Yeah? So I know about Goa, but coming here was a learning experience. I, for instance, didn't realize the name Goa was there before the Portuguese. You always think that the current name is given by the colonial power. Like for instance, Kenya was given by the British because the real name of Kenya is Kirinyaga. The real name of Burma is Myanmar. The name of Madras is Chennai. You know the problem, right? So I thought Goa was a Portuguese invention. No. When I came here, and I had two interesting tutors. One was Vivek, who was a very fast, precise tutor who likes to talk on the trot, walking around or looking at wells and so on. And the other was Professor Kalvira, who showed me the great houses of Goa. So for me, I learned a few new things. Because as an old man, you've learned a fair amount over the years, and you're also not very inclined to learn too many new things. But what was really important, and this is vital, this is a vital point, I had to revise the connections between the knowledge I had. I had to see it differently. I had to put into a new configuration. I had to revise it, update it, reject parts of it, see new things. And why do I still want to visit other cultures? Because when we visit other cultures, when we study others, we study ourselves, we understand ourselves more. And especially if it's a culture that shares a great amount with your own culture, by which I mean the connection with India, the connection with Asia, and so on. Of course, you can learn by looking at French society, etc. But I think we learn more from looking at your neighbors. And that, I think, has been very important for us. The second point, of course, is that difference teaches you more than similarities. Difference teaches you to ask questions, to find explanations and so on. And this is why I believe a good question is better than a weak answer. And if you ask good questions, you're going to get the right answers. And if I were to have any influence in setting exam papers, I will have one section right at the end, asking the candidate to ask questions of his examiners. And from those questions, you will be able to gauge fairly accurately how much the student knows, and also how much you yourself don't know. Now, I'm not going to go on talking about this. I'm going to read one poem, and this is about great houses, ancestral houses in Goa. Now, it's a risky thing to do. We all know how important ancestral houses are. The history of a family, and we in Asia, our families are always extended families. I've never known of a small Asian family, except in Singapore when our prime minister stopped at 2. I come from a family of 10. My wife comes from a family of 10. We only have 2 children, which is terrible, really. And when our prime minister said graduates should have more children, I looked at my colleagues, especially the professor in history, and said, "Look, Lincoln, you and I can go for an overhaul. What do we do with our wives?" And the answer was classic: cherish them, cherish them. Now, ancestral houses. Now, ancestral houses are history, they're a totality. They celebrate great events, they hide scandals. And let's be frank about it. Human beings are passionate people. This is why we need strong religion. I think you know what I mean. I still remember, now you mentioned about the men talking in front and the women talking behind. I'll tell you something. We kids used to go in and out and sometimes listen. And when they say, "Go away, go and play," you know something interesting is being discussed. Correct? And usually it's something scandalous. You know, one auntie being so-and-so's mistress or so-and-so whatever. You know what I mean? Things that you talk about and you think people don't know, but everybody knows. So I have one section here. And since I am a visitor to your culture and trying to learn it, I told myself, how do I get a certain authenticity regarding the life in the great houses? Now, so I thought what I'll do, I will link or take what I'm going to say from a novel about Goa, and I took it from Skin by Margaret Mascarenhas. Forgive me for mispronouncing the names. Okay, it'll take me a bit of time. I've taken it from a novel, Skin. So the third stanza is from her novel. And if you think it's not accurate, ask her, not me. So ancestral poems. And I'm dedicating this poem to Meena Caldera because she showed me. We drove miles and miles, looking at the houses. And it was so fascinating. And I haven't yet managed to come up with an intellectual structure to help put the Goan houses into perspective because the history was so rich. I was hoping to hear Mr. Korea or to meet him and ask him questions. And Vivek has given me some answers and so on. And Meena has given me some answers, but not enough. And ancestral houses, Goa. Only the sea, the sun, the eagle circling each bay on thermal wing, above rose and lotus, bruised listless by white heat, truly know you, immemorial edifices. How you confront time. You burnish, endure, test, delete or memorialize moments into notable epochs' history. You watch brilliant amber days, low cunning, skirmishes, how a dove descends when you put out water, put out food. How generation beget generation, logs them at play, intoning 2 languages to manage menials. Bow or curtsy to impress elders, relatives, earnest friends. Some become matriarchs, predestined with power, keeping secrets, silences, tweaking family politics, or caging a randy, hot, spicy sun from prowling nubile nights. Some incestuous. I must interrupt this one here. I quote from Albuquerque when he was asked, what did he come? I come in search of Christians and spices. So I quote, I come in search of Christians and spices. They grew therefrom, forgot one, harvested the other. Bypassed Venice, curved the Gulf of Guinea, picking up slaves. Those were the days, my friend, we thought they'd never end. From broad beaches, vantage rising roads, you swept deep inland to hill, stream, or where purpose, power, greed turned weary. Thus grew great houses, Luso or Indo, merging to a Goan style, unique in power, investiture called forth by taste and wealth, tact and rootedness. Neat, timeless courtyard, garden still full. Look close, touch, delicate trellises, pillars and window frames as if embroidered. Staircases of fine wood polished by soft palms. Ceilings depicting nostalgia, fancy and faith. Images that grip eye to feed imagination. Stories within stories, myths, dreams, legends of Portuguese, African, Indian mix and match. Marriage, rutting lines, life and contacts, design identity, lead narratives such as skin. There, Alfonso Miranda makes fortune, fame, buys earth and people in Basin, Goa and Dama, moves grandson into trade when drunk. The lad rapes a native slave, a princess in a tribe. Unbeknown, he kills Perpetua, their child, by his cruelty. A late marriage, chronic impotence, punishment perhaps. Leaves his wife Miranda Flores, a great duty, leaves her intact, untouched. Honed by horse and stirrup, her thighs wait endlessly to grip his flanks. Lonely, hungry, she knows, he knows. She ignores tempting surrogates in helpless ache and agony. That one bare moment, green priestly eyes entered her to reappear like Gogo's single nipple. G magic, perhaps they transmit racial memories as well. Beyond brick and mortar, great appearances, light of day, nightly stars, ordinary and regal moods, you are collective memory of family, clan, caste, national summation. Watch its diaspora. You embody dialects and dialectics of place, time, motion, pure stillness, form and color, respecting geometry yet inventing free flow, letting the primal spirit settle its own architecture. We walk, we feel your past recall, revive traditions, roots and bearings, readying us to digest global angst, international fevers, misadventures. Steadiness and sanity you give, for you know gifts of radiance and dark corners, fall and resurrection, greed, passion, tectonic frailties, you cure, purify with pre-character virtues, moments of epiphany, each fresh play of light and color, some new angle to please the world. I add a little to the language, bring me to you, to companions, and into ourselves. Gloria in excelsis.
Excellent.
Thank you, Dr. Tambu. That was quite mind-blowing. Poetry, text, fiction, and architecture, three of the forms of arts all coming together seamlessly and gaining new meaning at every line. Dr. Tambu had mentioned about 10 children and the small number of families now. I was doing some research on Goa and some information some years back, and I found one little fact that somewhere in the 17th, 18th century, for a period of around 10 years, there were mothers who had more than 15 children each. And for that 10-year period, Can you guess how many such women, such mothers were there? 63. So that's a whole lot of loving going on. You could say, yes. Large houses, large spaces, and dark nights. Yeah. Well, 63 into 15, right?
Yeah.
63 into 15, somebody do the maths. Yes, that's quite a family.
For 1,000 words.
And thank you, Dr. Tambo, again. Really moving. Our keynote speaker for today, Wendell Rodriguez. I once introduced Wendell at for a session at the Goa Lit Fest again, and I ended with a very emotional line saying that Toamso going to Bangaratso Put. He's the golden son of Goa, our beloved son. Wendell is well known as a fashion designer the world over. The style of design is recognized today as minimalism. He is known as the guru or the master of minimalism in India, having introduced it and strongly created that brand. He's had the honor of being the first Indian designer to be invited at various shows. The world's largest garment fair, Ijeto, in Germany in 1995, Dubai Fashion Week, Malaysia Fashion Week, the Paris Pret-a-Porter Salon in 2007, and the world's biggest organic fair, Biofarm, in Nuremberg, Germany in 2012. He's also well known for his philanthropy and activism in social, environmental, and cultural causes. He was instrumental in planning the first ever Lakme India Fashion Week in 2000 and guided it in an advisory capacity during his formative years. Wendell designed the Visionaire collection in 2001, the pioneering design to help the visually challenged read Braille on clothes, and has since been designing clothing for differently abled, physically challenged people. In 2010, he revived the Kurbi sari, encouraging, identifying, and training local weavers in Goa and using sari looms and reviving this very age-old tradition of the Kurbi sari. When he's an author too, he was also a member of our Goa writers. We are quite proud of that. And he's written in the book Moda Goa, History and Style, published by HarperCollins, which was quite well acclaimed. And also his memoir about the fashion industry, The Green Room. Both these books were published in 2012. Wendell served on the managing committee of the Red Cross Society and is also on the committee of the Museum of Christian Art and INTA, India. He is also the chairman of Green Goa Works, a non-profit organization formed to work with the Goan public to find solutions for a cleaner and greener Goa. He has been awarded the Padma Shri in 2014 and the Rainbow Warrior Award by Kashish Film Festival and distinguished as the Chevalier d'Ordre National d'Art et de Lettres by France, Ministry of Culture and Communication. A great son of Goa, a great writer, a great fashion designer, and a good friend to many of us here. Wendell Rodriguez, delivering the keynote address.
My dear friends on the dais, I'd like to thank you all for having me here. First of all, Yatin Kakotkar, Vivek Menezes, Damodar Mauzo, and my friend from Singapore. I'm so happy he's here, and he didn't say typical Singaporean things like repetitive, you know. I remember each time I ask a Singapore taxi driver, can I get out of this side of the car? He'll say, can la. This is the way we speak in India as well. We keep on saying, come, go, CC. I'm going to keep this very short. Do we have a match tonight? At 7, no? I am really surprised and happy to see this large gathering here, because we've been having so many things in Goa, right from the exposition to the film festival to a jazz festival going on. I think there's a cookery thing happening as well. And thankfully we don't have a match, otherwise I would have wound up in 5 minutes and got out of here. Thankfully to my friends in the front row, thank you for giving us a great time. More force to Forza Goa during the film fest, during this festival. I would like to talk about something that has been on my mind since a very long time, which is social media and books. Last month sorry, I think this doesn't want me to talk. Or do I raise it all over? It's okay. Last month I was reading in Harper's Bazaar an article by Amy Malloy talking about the selfie and her. And in that article she wrote about how she actually posed naked for the first time for a social media like Facebook or Instagram. And she said that she would never do something like that. It's just that social media made her into this, as she calls it, social media hussy, where she wanted to be liked by many people. Of course, photograph was liked, and of course it got retweeted, re-Instagrammed, shared, etc. And it got me thinking that whether we are, because of social media, moving to becoming this narcissistic society. They've shown that actually there's been an increase in narcissistic behavior by 30% since social media took over. I don't know. All of us, myself included, have become the modern world cultural imposed epidemics for most of us. I say most because I have a lot of friends who use social media for the right causes. They interact, they, I think not do this time. They use social media for the right causes by talking, inciting conversation, critique, praise with very small groups of friends. Each day I look with kind of trepidation at my Facebook friend list and say, I can't go beyond this amount. Unlike my friend Srinivas Dempo here, who I can't send a Facebook request because he's gone above his limit and it says certain views. I would like to also say that before 2009, Facebook allowed you to actually have 60 photos on any photo album. And today you can drop and drag to your heart's content as many photographs as you want to in your Facebook account. On Instagram, there have been 240 million people who've used the hashtag me, which goes to, sorry. Can you hear me on the back there? We can, thanks.
It's not Mike's problem. It's not Mike's problem. It's a cell phone.
My cell phone is off. And then you have all these photo altering things that happen on social media.
It's not the mic. It's not Mike's problem. It's system. It's system. That's the others.
Then you have all these things on social media where people want to look good. You know, you have things like FaceTime. You have things like Molly Face, where you can add false lashes. You can get greater cheekbones. You can lose 12 kilos in a flash. And all of this happens by just tweaking the photograph so that everybody wants to be liked, and the more we get liked, the more happy we feel. The funny thing about all of this, unlike books, which I'm going to come to in a minute,
is that the more we share, the more we conceal. We want to share and show that we are, a kind of person that lives in a parallel universe, when actually we are not. We are actually just being the person that we want to be on a public stage. So you're performing. And this, I would like to bring to the fact that I would say that everything we do today is done on social media. As my friend Farooq Chotia said, by the way, they're having a photograph exhibition tomorrow at Sunapran. He said, if it's not on Facebook, it didn't happen. If it's not on social media, you just didn't happen and you don't survive. I would like to talk about a small story that happened with a good friend of mine from Bombay. Some of you may know her, but I'm not going to name her for obvious reasons. Where her friend saw her husband going into a hotel room at the Taj with another young lady. And she called her up and she said, this was the day when they didn't even have Facebook and social media. And she said, I saw your husband going into this room and you better call him up. They did have cell phones, they didn't have social media. And she actually called her husband up and she said, where are you and what are you doing? And he said, I'm driving home, I'm stuck in this traffic. And she said, okay, fine, can you blow your horn? And of course he couldn't blow his horn. But in today's world, this friend would have just taken out her camera and taken out a photograph and WhatsApped it to her and the matter would be over. The end of the story was, of course, the man got caught out is one thing. She had all his belongings thrown out of this Cuff Parade flat on the road and he had to leave Bombay in shame. I once asked on my Facebook page what's happened to all of us and all our postings when we finally die. Do they stay there for eternity or do they go away? Are they like books that are not published again? Are they books that are published again and being retweeted and shared? And it was very interesting to know that now you have on social media, you have things like what is called slingshot, where you can only see an image once and it disappears, or you have something on Snapchat which self-destructs the photo after it's been watched for a certain number of days. Also, what's happening, unfortunately and dangerously, is the fact that people want to go by the image. They don't want to know about the entire story. They look at the image and decide that they've really read the news and the caption is enough. And brief has become the new black, at least as far as fashion goes, where you say very little but you show a lot, and it's completely not like writing a book where you show and not tell. We tend to perform on social media. It's like, I'm sorry to say, pornography, which makes you anxious to perform. Because you've seen something and you feel that, oh, I have to get to that level, and you intentionally become anxious. Which brings me to one of the 3 bestsellers we've had in terms of books for the last 2 years, since 2012. We've had 50 Shades of Grey, which I read 40 pages of and threw at my girlfriend, who threw at her daughter after 20 pages, whose daughter read 10 pages and threw in the dustbin. Then we had The Hunger Games, and then we had a book that caught everyone by storm. And this is by Gillian Flynn, who wrote 2 earlier books called Dark Spaces and Sharp Objects, both thrillers. And then finally for her 3rd book, she came on to this marvel that took everybody by storm and made it into a bestseller called, as we know, what's it called? Something Girl. Gone Girl. Yes, thank you. Gone Girl actually pressed all the right buttons. It got the best reviews. And Gillian says something very pertinent. She said, focus on the writing. Don't focus on social media, because you can push a book on social media, but you don't really need to. You just need to really write or take good photographs if you are a photographer for a book, or act really well if you are an actor. And social media will do the rest. At this stage, I would like to say that social media and social networking are two very different things. With social media, you can put out whatever you want to say, either via a blog or a video. With social networking, you can do it on Facebook and Twitter. I have a friend called Radhika Shetty in Singapore who wrote a book called The Red Helmet. And the way she worked that book, I mean, she made everybody pose with that book for the better part of, I think, a month that's happening now. She works for the Straits Times as a journalist, but she wrote this other book about her life in India. And the good thing about how we can use social media is you have even places like Amazon, you have author.amazon.com, where you can actually get onto this thing and they help you to write your first book, help you to find out things about where your book is going, how far it's being sold, in which city, and it does all these great things. There's also a friend of mine called Pooja Pandey who wrote a children's comics strip book, who introduced me to a new social media app called PWYW, which is Pay What You Wish. And Radiohead, this music group, used this forum, and they had a bestseller which went viral. I bought a book. I mean, even though it says pay what you wish, and the first thing it says you can pay 0 rupees or $0, but you feel like paying the cost of a CD or the cost of a book, so you invariably give, and you can use that as well. Which brings me to my friend Amitav Ghosh, who told me and my friends that, you know, one day there'll be no books. We won't have books. We'll just have our Kindles which we carry along, and that would be a very sad day. But I think I want to end by saying, as long as we have people like me who prefer crisp cold cash over plastic, we will prefer crisp published books over reading on plastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendell. The mic treats me a little better. Wendell makes some very pertinent points. And I'm reminded of the old question. If a tree falls in the forest and no one hears it, did it really fall? So if something has not happened on social media, did it really happen? I hope I got that line correct. If a tree falls in the forest and no one hears it, did it really fall? I'm also reminded of a little, I'm also a Facebook addict. I've become addicted in the last a year or so. And I said, okay, if I'm not going to be writing short stories, I might as well write 1 line or 2 lines of fiction on Facebook. And I wrote something like this. I don't know if it counts for anything. An hour later, she sprawled on the floor, feeling like she was sprawled on the ceiling. That was just 1 line. And then there were some 7 likes for it. And I said, yes, now I'm going to embark on my next work. And I wrote, he thirsted for her voluptuous curves all evening. And later that night, he consumed an hourglass of her. Yes, 9 likes for that, 2 more. Yes. And over the last 5 years of the Goa Lit Fest, we have, the organizers have always commissioned original artwork as the official festival poster. And now comes the time to unveil the GALF 2014 festival poster, the exclusive artwork of Dr. Subodh Kerkar. Dr. Subodh Kerkar is a medical doctor by profession, but he is well known all over Goa for his paintings and for his installations, which are largely inspired by natural elements, the sea, the boats, the coconut palms and trees. And now we shall see what he has to offer us. I request Dr. Kambu to kindly unveil the poster. Thank you. So, new festival edition and a new work of art. This brings us to the end of the formal inaugural. We will follow this with a book launch, and then we have a fascinating debate. And I request our guests.